He survived 29 duels, but not the ambition of the man who called himself his brother. Arizona Territory, March 2nd, 1889. The sun was dying behind the jagged hills of the Sonoran Desert, casting long shadows across the dusty streets of Caligo Springs, a forgotten town clinging to the edge of the Mexican border. Once a waypoint for stagecoaches and cattle drives, it was now a shelter for drifters, gamblers, and men who kept their backs to the wall. And among them, one name could silence an entire saloon: Clayton Reese, the last of the old gunslingers. Clayton wasn't a hero, and he never claimed to be. He was a survivor. The scars on his body, the empty whiskey bottles, and the notches on his Colt Peacemaker told the story. Legend said he walked away from 29 duels. Some said he couldn't die. Others claimed he already had, and it was the devil himself who walked in his boots. But the few who truly knew him understood one thing: Clayton lived by a code. And in a land where the law arrived 3 days too late on horseback, that was sometimes the only order that mattered. For 6 years he rode with Jesse Vale, younger, slicker, and twice as charming. Jesse had a silver tongue and eyes sharp enough to con a rattlesnake. To the world, they were brothers in everything but blood, bound by dust, gun smoke, and a past they never spoke of. But everything changes when gold enters a man's life, especially $20,000, the rumored contents of a payroll train traveling from Tucson to a Mexican army outpost south of the border. Jesse brought the job, said it was easy, said no one had to die, said it'd be the last one before they retired for good. Clayton didn't rob trains, that was a young man's game. But something in Jesse's voice that night stirred an old, cold feeling in his gut. The same feeling he got before every duel. The plan was simple: derail the train near Rocker Canyon, grab the strongbox, disappear across the border. But something went wrong. The explosives misfired. The guards were better armed than expected, and Jesse never showed. By the time Clayton reached the strongbox, bleeding from a shoulder wound and dragging 2 dead soldiers, the gold was gone. And in its place, Jesse's silver pocket watch. Clayton rode 3 days through the desert, half dead and haunted by ghosts, until he reached Caligo Springs. He knew exactly where Jesse would go Rosie Mays. It wasn't just a saloon. It was Jesse's last safe place, because of her. Rosie was a pioneer woman, the kind who once held a shotgun at her own wedding and buried 2 husbands in the same month. She'd saved both Clayton and Jesse, once gave them shelter, new names, and reasons to stop running. She was Jesse's weakness, and Jesse, he was hers. When Clayton walked into the saloon, silence followed him like a funeral bell. Rosie stood behind the bar, hands trembling just enough to spill whiskey. Her eyes met his. Pain, not surprise. "He's upstairs," she said. "Didn't think you'd come." Clayton said nothing. He climbed the stairs like a man walking to his own hanging, step by step, heavier than the last. Jesse was in the room above, drunk, armed, crying. His voice cracked. "You weren't supposed to make it, Clay." I tried to make it quick. The fight that followed wasn't a duel. It was rage, betrayal, fists and broken ribs. When the smoke cleared, Clayton stood alone. Jesse's gun was on the floor, unfired, 1 bullet still in the chamber. Clayton buried him beneath the sycamore by the river, the same tree where they once hid from bounty hunters. Rosie said nothing. She just watched. When it was done, Clayton sat at the edge of town, eyes on the horizon. The West was dying. Railroads, banks, lawmen in polished boots. There was no place for men like him anymore. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands and whispered to the wind, "The fastest draw can't outrun betrayal. Blood and dust. The desert doesn't forget, and it sure as hell doesn't forgive." The next morning, Culligo Springs awoke to silence. Clayton Reese stood on the edge of town, saddlebag packed, eyes locked on the rising sun. He hadn't slept. Jesse's betrayal still burned in his gut like whiskey and gunpowder. He rode south. Not for vengeance, not yet. First, he wanted answers. Inside Jesse's watch, hidden behind the backplate, Clayton had found a name carved into the metal: R. Del Bosque. 3 days later, after scorching heat, dead ranches, and a near miss with a band of Apache scouts, he arrived in Santa Lazaro, a border town so forgotten it barely existed. There, smugglers drank beside priests, and murderers prayed without shame. He asked for Del Bosque. The name stirred reactions, nervous laughter, curses, silence. Eventually, a drunk named Hector sent him to the Casa de Sangre, a cantina carved into a canyon wall. Inside, through haze and heat, Clayton found her. Lucia Del Bosque, tall, deadly, eyes like obsidian. Not surprised to see him. "You're late," she said. "You were expecting me?" "Your partner sent me a gift." She tossed him a watch identical to Jesse's. "Told me if you showed up, I should kill you." Lucia explained Jesse had struck a deal with Colonel Salvador Rios, a rogue Mexican officer who ran guns and gold like a king. The $20,000 was a fraction of the real prize. The train carried sensitive information maps and codes destined for revolutionaries. Jesse had lied to everyone. He tried to back out, Lucia said, but it was too late. That night, they were ambushed. 6 men stormed the cantina. Lucia dropped 2. Clayton shot another. The rest fled, but not before one screamed, "Tell Reese he's next." The past was hunting him, but this time it had new names and more bullets. At dawn, Clayton loaded his Colt and said, "Now we ride into hell. Let's see who remembers the devil." The devil's kingdom. Some men build empires out of gold, others out of fear. Rios did both. Together, Clayton and Lucia rode south into La Frontera Roja, a wasteland ruled not by governments, but guns. At an old mission called Santa Reina de los Muertos, they found Lucia's allies butchered. One survivor muttered with his final breath, "Someone closer betrayed us." They pressed on to La Fortaleza del Sur Rios' fortress, a monstrous structure carved into the mountain, bristling with machine guns and guards. They couldn't storm it head-on. But Jesse had left Clayton a map, a secret tunnel beneath the fortress. Inside, they discovered weapons, gold, documents, and Colonel Rios himself, dressed in blood red, cigar in hand, holding Jesse's silver watch. "I was wondering when the ghost would come," he said. Clayton raised his gun. "I came for the truth." Rios smiled, then prepared to die with it. And the shooting began. No man's honor. In a land with no law, all a man has is his word, and even that gets buried in blood. Gunfire roared. Lucia dropped 2 soldiers. Clayton went for Rios. They clashed fists, blood, fury. Rios slashed Clayton's ribs with a hidden blade, but Clayton wrestled the colonel's revolver from his holster. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, "Don't!" The voice froze him. Jesse, alive, bruised, limping, revolver in hand. "I needed you to chase me," Jesse said. "It was the only way to get inside." "You should have told me." "You wouldn't have let me go through with it." Lucia stepped out of the shadows, gun raised. Rios made one last move for a hidden knife, but Lucia shot him through the heart. Silence. They burned the gold, destroyed the evidence, buried the truth. Clayton and Jesse didn't speak again. No forgiveness, no brotherhood. By dawn, Jesse was gone. Lucia rode north. Clayton stayed behind, not to run, not to fight, just to watch the sunrise one last time. The last ride. The West didn't die in a gunfight. It just rode off, too tired to keep going. April 1889, Caligo Springs. Before you find out how this story ends, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Here you'll always find intriguing stories from the West, full of adventures, dilemmas, and unexpected twists and turns. Clayton sat alone, harmonica in hand, watching the world move on. No more gunfights, no more legends, just dust. Rosie brought him coffee. "You gonna die out here, or just rehearsing?" she asked. "Maybe both." "You could stay," she said. "People still need men who remember what honor means." Clayton stared out at the horizon. That kind of honor don't fit this world no more. Later, he walked into the sheriff's office, placed his Colt on the desk, and left. He saddled his old Mustang whiskey and rode south. No destination, no goodbyes. Just a man too old for a world too new. They say the last gunslinger vanished into the desert. Some say he became a ghost. Others believe he found a new name, a quiet town, and peace. But a few still swear that if you ride far enough, you'll find fresh tracks in the dust and the faint echo of one last gunshot fading into the wind. Because legends don't die. They just ride on until the world forgets they were ever real. If this journey through the Wild West had you hooked until the end, if you found yourself cheering, or even holding your breath, then comment below. The legend continues. Your interaction is what keeps these stories alive. The more people who like, comment, and share, the further this adventure will go. And of course, if you like stories of courage, duels, and twists and turns that even fate didn't expect, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because here, every week there's a new story to ride with us. The end.